my back. Oh, that hurts. What is this place? I don't like this. I don't like this at all. I need to get out of here and... Okay, what is that?
Abandon all hope, all thee who enter here.
Ooh, spooky.
Through me you enter the tormented city. Through me you come to eternal pain. Through me you join with the desolate souls.
What the hell is this?
Exactly that. Hell.
I guess it makes sense. And you are...
I was brought into being by the power divine, by the sum of all knowledge, the wellspring of love. Before me was no thing that was not eternal, and I will endure through endless time.
More commonly known as Kaihatsu, I'm here to help with the video.
Oh yeah, so that's what this is. Between 1308 and 1320, Dante Alighieri wrote what would become one of the most important pieces of literature ever. A collection of 3 different books that together make up the Divine Comedy, an allegorical poem in which we follow the steps of our protagonist through the 3 realms of the afterlife. But what does this have to do with Pokemon? Well, it's not because the story of the games is based after the Divine Comedy, no. But some elements and symbols of the Divine Comedy are present in them, especially when we look into the religious concepts in Gen 4. Dante's work can actually be used as a tool to understand the symbols and significance of what the legendary Pokemon represent, and it can also help us to understand the inspirations of many things from many points of the series, using the recollection of symbols it provides us. But first, a little context.
Who was Dante Alighieri? Dante di Alighiero degli Alighieri was born in Florence, modern-day Italy, circa 1265. At this point in time, all of this area was going through great turmoil, centuries of conflict between the popes and the rulers of the Holy Roman Empire, which had plunged the Italian city-states into a long civil war that went on for over 300 years. After multiple attempts from the Holy Roman Emperors to take over the northern states of Italy, the Lombard League was formed and 2 antagonistic factions were born, the Guelphs and the Ghibellines, supporting the Pope and the Emperor. Through the decades, different city-states sided with one of the factions, and in this context, a young Dante joined the army of Florence to fight for the Guelphs.
The Guelphs prevailed, but by the turn of the century and with Alighieri now involved in Florentine politics, the Pope wanted to extend his control over the city-states, creating a new division, the Black Guelphs, who were in favor of more papal control, and the White Guelphs, who rejected the advances of the Bishop of Rome, especially because the guy in charge got into the charge after the abdication of Celestine V, so people really didn't see him as a legitimate ruler, and also because he was more worried about his feuds with other rulers than the current state of the church.
Then, in 1301, the Pope named a peacemaker for the region of Tuscany, Charles of Valois, the brother of the King of France, who moved with his army to the vicinity of Florence. The Florentines saw this as a suspicious move, so they sent Dante and the others to the Vatican in a diplomatic mission to discuss the situation, and while they were there, the French attacked the city and replaced the authorities with Black Guelphs, and Dante was exiled. This is the context in which the poet starts to work on his masterpiece, the comedy, made up of 3 books, Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso, in which Dante himself goes through hell, purgatory, and the heavens while encountering many of his favorite historical, mythological, and religious figures ever, as well as putting his political enemies in the depths of hell.
Dante is trying to reach heaven to meet with a woman, the representation of theology, a woman he knew and loved in life, Beatrice Portinari. They had met just a couple of times and didn't speak that much, nor had any real familiarity. Back in the day, people had this concept called courtly love, in which people, and especially knights, would perform deeds for a noble woman they loved, usually from a distance. This is the kind of admiration Dante had for Beatrice. So what I'm saying is that Dante was a self-insert fanfiction writing the first of his kind. And through that mixture of Christian, Jewish, Greek, Roman and esoteric symbols, and also a level of world building never seen before, this compilation of knowledge became so influential that the imagery used by Dante is present in popular culture to this day. He also published the books in Tuscan Italian instead of Latin, the language used by scholars and the elite. He did this so his criticism of the church would reach the biggest possible audience, helping to its long-time relevance, and also to the unification of the Italian tongue, giving Dante the title of Father of the Italian language. Dante lived in a complex time. One video isn't really enough to explain how complex the politics of medieval Italy were, but now that we have some context, let's proceed to what Pokémon borrows from his work.
Giratina, the renegade Pokémon, was born according to Cynthia's research at the same time as the Pokémon of time and space, Dialga and Palkia. This means that it was one of the first creatures to come to life after the creation of the Pokémon world by Arceus. A Pokémon who was banished to its own dimension, the Distortion World. A world that is opposite of the real one, where time doesn't flow and space is not stable. A world that acts as a counterbalance to the other. This is the role Giratina has, as Cyrus explains, to keep balance between the worlds.
Giratina acts as a representation of both antimatter and destruction, being the opposite to Dialga and Palkia, the opposite to creation, a complementary force to the Pokémon god Arceus. Obviously, this instantly makes us think in a devil-like figure, an antagonistic creature who gazes upon the earth from the abyss. Now, Giratina's realm, the Distortion World, is accessible from 2 points of the Pokémon world. Spear Pillar, at the peak of Mount Coronet, the place where Giratina, Palkia and Dalgia were created by Arceus, and also Turnback Cave, an ancient cemetery hidden in the woods near Bellstone City. This cave is located on the shores of a lake, the 4th lake of the Sinnoh region, which has been kept a secret for generations. That lake is itself placed within an area known as the Send-Off Spring, rumored to be where the dead go before their journey to the afterlife. After entering the cave, you'll find yourself surrounded by a deep fog, and then we'll see that this cave is actually a carefully crafted construction. First, we see a room with multiple exits and a pillar in the center with an inscription on it. Past 3 pillars to the sleeping before 30 is surpassed. You'll make your way through a maze of rooms, searching for pillars number 2 and 3, having to find the last pillar before visiting 30 rooms, or otherwise you'll be sent back to the entrance. In the final room, we can find 3 different items and a portal to the Distortion World, and also a new inscription in the final pillar. This is that where life sparkles, that where life has faded, a place where 2 worlds overlap.
This indicates to us that the Distortion World can be interpreted as some sort of afterlife, and Giratina as a ruler of this realm. The portals to the Distortion World, being where life started and where life ends, are an extension of this idea and strengthens the duality of Giratina and Arceus. Well, finally, this is where we can start to trace comparisons with Dante's Divine Comedy. Let us explain. The symbolism in the comedy is present even in its structure. All of the books are composed of poems known as cantos, with 33 cantos in each book, except for Inferno, which has 34, making up to 100. The number 3 is seen everywhere in the comedy, from Dante going through 3 different realms of the dead to the rhyme scheme made up of 33-syllable long tercets. Of course, this is all a reference to the Holy Trinity. Now, the realms of the afterlife are made up of 9 different circles, plus 1 external circle. This means Dante passes 30 different circles during his journey, the same amount of rooms in Turnback Cave, and if you take the 3 pillar rooms into consideration, you end up with 3 sections of 10. We could actually extend this idea into Giratina's design. 3 pairs of legs, 3 pairs of red pointy spiky things, 3 pairs of rings on its neck. And remember those 3 items from earlier? the Reaper Cloth, the Rare Bone, and the Stardust?
The Reaper Cloth is called a Spirit World Cloth in Japan. This one we think is meant to represent Inferno, Hell. After all, there is a strong parallel to be made between the realm of Giratina and ghostly Pokemon. Right here in the cave, we find Dusclops and Hunter, two Pokemon linked with black holes, and also different dimensions, just like Giratina and the Distortion World. Does this mean all ghost-type Pokemon are from the Distortion World? I really don't know. Okay, then the Rare Bone continues the theme around death, but in this case we have something a bit more physical. Purgatorio is the second realm and is the most tangible of the three, being a mountain completely located on the surface of the earth, with the Garden of Eden at the top, also known as the Earthly Paradise. Dante even questions why souls in Purgatorio seem to suffer things like hunger, even if they don't have bodies. Then Stardust represents Paradiso, because paradise isn't just the heavens, it's a space, with planets and stars acting as the circles of this realm, and with God at the top of it all. So, is Turnback Cave a representation of the whole of the Divine Comedy? Not exactly. It actually shares more similarities with the first book of the comedy, Inferno. In Canto 1 of Inferno, Dante appears in a dark forest near Jerusalem and is guided by the Roman poet Virgil to the entrance of Hell. They cross the river Acheron, taken on a boat by the ferryman Charon, and this is how they reach the first circle. We can already see some similarities with the Send-Off Spring, but it gets more interesting if we remember that Turnback Cave was filled with mist. Dante repeatedly describes the abyss of Inferno as being dark and full of mist. But the similarities do not end here. The Send-Off Spring has a very peculiar form, one that looks like a crater. Well, that's actually what it is. Look at its shape, the stardust from the cave, the craters in neighboring areas, the presence of Solrock and Lunaton, which is really fitting because Dante's Inferno is also a crater, a hole created by the fall of Lucifer from heaven. The crash was so intense he went deep into the center of the earth and caused a movement of land, creating Mount Purgatory at the other side of the world. Interestingly, Send-Off Spring also seems to be inspired by Lake Mashu, located in the Japanese island of Hokkaido, which Sinnoh was modeled after. The lake is inside a 200 meters deep crater and was known by the native Ainu people as the Lake of the Devil. The lake is said to be the clearest in the world, but it's often obscured by a thick fog in the summer. It is said that the lake brings bad luck to those who glimpse its serene and mirror-like surface. Going back to Satan, he is in the lower point of hell, the 9th circle. This is the place of punishment for those souls that committed treachery while alive. The biggest traitor, the devil, is depicted as a fallen angel with the lower half of his body under the eyes, and with 3 different heads, one red, one pale yellow, and one black.
This has an interesting tie to Giratina and also one of its more Japanese inspirations. One important part of the many Japanese influences on Giratina's design is a monster known as Seta, a giant centipede monster from a folktale called The Tale of Tawara Toda, also known in English as My Lord Bag of Rice. In the story, Heian period bureaucrat Fujiwara no Hidesato, named Tawara Toda, kills the giant beast on the request of a shape-shifting woman. He was visited by this young woman, who proclaimed to be the transformation of a serpent he encountered on Seta Bridge earlier in the day. Near Lake Biwa, where she lived, a giant centipede took up residence on Mount Mikami and was devouring countless animals and people. Hidesato accepted her plea to eradicate the creature and went to Seta. When the centipede came slinking down, it appeared as if 2,000 or 3,000 torches were descending the the mountain. It was described as having eyes that glowed like 2 balls of fire, its body so big it wrapped around the mountain 7 times. Hidesato shot 2 arrows which failed to lodge in the beast's skin, but when he spat on the 3rd arrow and prayed to his patron Hachiman deity, it struck a grievous blow. Hidesato then approached the creature and hacked it to pieces. Giratina's color scheme, and that of Satan in the 9th circle, match the traditional colors of Seta: yellow, red, and black. Seta is often depicted with a black and red body like this, which matches the black and red stripes on Giratina's belly. And there's actually some species of centipede out there which also match this coloration perfectly, and probably served as an inspiration for Seta and Giratina's colors. Now, in return, the dragon serpent woman was elated and gave Hidesato magical gifts: undiminishing bolts of silk, an inexhaustible rice bag, and a crimson copper pan of plenty. Now, in Turnback Cave, we also have a chance of receiving one of 3 items: the Reaper Cloth, having parallels with the silk bolts, and the Bag of Stardust with a bag of rice. The Dragon Woman then took him to see the Dragon King, who gave him further gifts, including a copper temple bell. In an older version of the legend, Hidesato only meets the Dragon King, who is the one that requests his help. Afterwards, he receives the inexhaustible silken rice bag from the Dragon King, but instead of getting the copper alloy pan, he only gets the copper temple bell. This is perhaps why Bronzong can be caught inside Turnback Cave, as another nod to the story.
Satan also has 6 wings, the same number of wings Giratina has in its origin form. Now, Dante and his guide Virgil had been going deeper and deeper into hell. How do they get out of there when they are so close to the center of the earth? They grab Satan's fur and go down the hole. At one point, gravity changes and they start going up, as they are now in the other hemisphere of the planet. The connection with the distortion world is obvious. But we can find other references to Dante's 3-headed Satan in Pokemon. Another figure similar to him is Kyurem, a Pokemon that is just one part of a 3-folded dragon. The comparison is stronger when we remember these games had Getsis as the antagonist, with a lot of devil symbolism around him, and his ace Pokemon follows this concept as well. Also, there's the Snow Point Temple, where we find Regigigas bound, frozen to the ground. But I think in this case the symbolism is closer to the area right above Satan, where giants are chained to the ground, punished for their excessive pride. But let's keep going, because Dante and Virgil are now at the other side of the planet, looking up into the stars. The setting of the second book in Dante's journey is Mount Purgatorio. This place has many things in common with Mount Coronet. The mountain is the most sacred place in the Sinnoh region, and it has many levels you must climb up in order to reach the point where Earth started, Spear Pillar. Just like Purgatorio, the place where souls are cleansed of their sins, with 10 different levels or circles, with the highest one of them being the earthly paradise. The rest of the 10 circles are 2 that make up the Ante-Purgatorio and the 7 terraces of the 7 capital sins. 7, just like in the story of the centipede. Right outside the first terrace we find a closed door with 3 steps in front of it representing the 3 stages of repentance. We could trace a parallel to the gate guarding the way up to the peak of Mount Coronet, a gate with drawings of the 3 legendary Pokemon of the lakes, gate that opens once Cyrus captures those 3 Pokemon. Also, we could add the detail that this door is in the 2nd level of Mount Coronet, just like the door to Purgatorio is at the end of the 2nd circle. But the most important connection to make here is the earthly paradise and Spear Pillar.
Both of these places are basically the same. The earthly paradise is none other than the Garden of Eden, the place where humans first lived during Genesis, and remember the myth talking about the creation of the Pokemon world. It shares many things with how the 3rd book of the comedy, Paradiso, explains the times of the creation. This has the original god existing alone, before the existence of time and space, just like the Sinnoh myth. From the creator, time and space are created, and then the Trinity appears, allowing the light to flow down and create Earth. Now it is not only time and space that are separate, but also matter and form, really similar to the matter and spirit mentioned in the Sinnoh myths. All of this emanating from the infinite divine presence even previous to the manifestation of God. That infinite entity is also present in the legends of the Pokemon world. A hiker in the Canalave library, who has been researching the myths of Sinnoh, mentions that spirit. Both the comedy and the hiker mention the existence of the spirit before the self-awareness of the creator and the conjoined existence of time and space.
Then Beatrice proceeds to explain that the revolution of the angels which caused Satan's exile to hell was instantly after the creation was finished. This is similar to what Cynthia says about Giratina, explaining that it came into existence at the same point as time and space. Oh, fun fact, remember Dante's exile and how the French crown was involved in the coup at Florence? Well, not long after that, the Pope continued to push for more control and tried to excommunicate French King Philip IV. The king responded by ordering a hit on the Pope, who was killed and eventually replaced with a friend of Philip's, and then the Vatican was moved to Avignon, France. Dante didn't like this one bit, and filled the comedy with critiques to Philip, like in Canto 32 of Purgatorio, where he compares the king with a giant pulling a chariot carrying a harlot, the church. He also uses the fleur-de-lis as a name for Philip. Fleur-de-lis is the origin of Lysander's name, who is related to AC, a giant who was also the king of the France-based region. Also, King Philip is the one who ordered the trials against the Templars, who are one of the inspirations behind Team Plasma. Now, Team Plasma's shield is based on the Cairo, and has the exact same colors as the Cairo in this one mosaic of the Western Roman Emperor Justinian, who Dante meets in Paradiso. Oh, and where is this mosaic? In a basilica in Ravenna, Italy, just a 10-minute walk away from Dante's grave. Do what you wish with this information.
Let me bring that thing about the original spirit back, because that we can compare with the structure of Paradiso, where Dante goes through the stellar spheres placed around the Earth, following the medieval view of the cosmos. Each sphere represents one of the 7 planets, these being the Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, and then we have the fixed stars and the Primum Mobile, the first moved, where the angels reside and the first sphere of creation. Then the 10th sphere, the Empyrean, God, who appears to Dante as 3 interlaced rings shining with intensity. These 3 rings are what Beatrice observes and describes as the point where everywhere and everywhen is fixed, meaning time and space, as one.
From these circles, creation started and was emanated just like the spirit the hiker mentioned, but also Dante explains that the light is the essence of these circles, and that the third is emanated by the other 2, something we can compare with the creation trio. And with Team Galactic trying to basically create a new universe, it is really fitting for them to be named after planets and the galaxy. Even if we lack someone for Mercury, and Cynthia is the one named after the moon. Mars is named Venus in some localizations, while Charon was already present in Hell. But where is Paradiso in Sinnoh, if it's a space in the comedy? Well, the 3 holiest spheres are reached by going up a ladder, similar to how you have to go up a staircase at Mount Coronet to reach the Hall of Origin, where Arceus awaits. Pokemon just simply loves taking stuff from different sources and merging everything into one singular canon to make the lore of its world, creating a rich and cohesive narrative. In some aspects more than others, of course. That's why Dante seems like a perfect inspiration for them. He did the same in the Commedia. He took images and symbols from different mythologies and religions, fusing them into one of the most significant works of literature ever. There's still a lot to cover when it comes to Giratina, from mythology to physics and more. But that's a story for another time, another space. another place altogether. Well, this is the end of the video. Thanks for making it to the end. And don't forget to check Kaihatsu's channel. He is one of the best out there when it comes to cultural analysis of video games. If you like my stuff, you'll love his work. Anyways, it's been a pleasure, hope you enjoyed this, good luck, and see you next time.